Hey, we're back to Revit on Chapter 7. We're going to continue on to roofs. We left off with Chapter 6 with floors, and there's going to be a lot of similar overlapping commands that we learned in floors in Chapter 6 that are going to be very similar to roofs and complementary in many ways, and additional skills, but also some very similar skills, especially when it comes to splitting things, using some edit commands and editing assemblies of floors. So this is our beginning starting file. We'll start in Revit, or our class 191, fall semester 2021. Download your Chapter 7 file here from Moodle if you haven't already. And we're going to start with where we left off in Chapter 6. And we had a lot of carpets, different types of floors we added with different materials, terrazzo, carpet, different sloping floors. That's where we ended, and this is where we're going to end up. So we're going to try some different types of roofs, some slope roofs, some extruded roofs, some pitch roofs with dormer, and some flat roofs with drainage. Not obviously completely flat in most times in the rule, but seemingly flat with a slight amount of pitch to drain. So that's our end product in this chapter. Let's start with the beginning. I'm going to close our final product for now. I got some ribbons not showing 100% here. If that ever happens to you, try this ribbon toggle to change the type of panels and ribbons we got shown. That happens sometimes. Anyway, we're going to start by placing a roof footprint, and we're going to be on the beginning of Chapter 7. And like I said, we have a lot of different types of roofs. We're going to do a flat roof with some drainage, mostly looking flat though, a gable roof with two open-ended sides that are slope at the ends. The ends are left open. That's a gable roof. A hip roof, which with all sides are sloped. And we're going to have mostly a gable roof in the middle here with some hip in the middle. A hip roof would be kind of like on a ranch style house, something that has slopes going to all sides, hips and valleys. And then we're going to try an extruded roof with a unique shape. So let's start with flat roofs by footprint. We're going to go to roof view first. I got my 3D view, and let's start with that. Brings us into our roof view floor plan. We're going to zoom into the east wing, select all of the CMU walls to start. I'll just use a crossing box in that method. And we're going to go to the top offset in this area, and it's going to be set to -1 feet. We're prepping this top roof. So those aren't going to quite go to the roof. Hit apply if it doesn't do it automatically. Okay. One quick second, I need to change my top constraint also to the top level to roof. Hit apply again. Those should disappear. So we're making sure the elevator shafts aren't on this complete level. We offset them down a foot, with the top level being the roof level we just made. So we're going to start making our first roof footprint on page 323. New command for us. We have some different options here in our fly down menu. Most of ours are going to be in this option, roof by footprint. And we're going to create the footprint with lines and drafting before we do the final 3D modeling. So we select that. Let's make sure we first on our option box, turn off the define slope. In this case, you'll see the importance of doing and not doing that sometimes later in this chapter. Overhang on the outskirts of the roof. So like an eave out here, that would be the overhang. We'll see more of that later. Is 0 on this one. And we'll make sure to keep the extend to wall core off. We're not going to go all the way to the core of the wall, the structural core of the wall. So we're going to hover over the leftmost wall. There's a handy command. Once you hover there, hit tab. 1 second. There we go. So I hovered there. First time it didn't work. This time it did. Just be patient with it. Hit tab. It got all the walls. And this is kind of a really handy command, really. It gets all the perimeter walls. It defaults to pick walls here, which is good. This is what we want in this case. That should automatically be selected, but just make sure. We'll see that more later. And that's where our magenta line should be. Should be on the inside like that. Just make sure, double check. And we're just going to go finish edit mode. This is all we're doing right now. That was easy enough, but the harder part's going to come in a minute when we add the drainage areas within this flattish roof. So there's two ways to look at a roofing system. One way is to create it, using typical large space, leave space for structural framing, but that's tough because if you create a roof only with the roofing components, you get conflicts between the structural beams and columns and stuff. Oftentimes it's hard for an architect to guess, what depth where the structural elements will go. So really that's the first method. The second method is to look at a roofing system that we're going to build here in this way, is to build the roof in a more literal way. What that means is you create the roof as it would sit on the structural framing of a building by a structural engineer. So if you can think of it that way, so the structural engineers beams and columns and trusses marry within it. So you're kind of creating an exoskeleton in some way, or an internal exoskeleton. Anyway, that's a little deep for that, but two different ways of thinking about it. Another thing is on this selector, so we can do our same selection like this, filter, just get a roof, say, okay, it has a roof. We can tell it has one thing here, one thing also in our filter there. So we know a couple options, but one handy thing is to turn on select elements by face. And that allows us to select this roof just by face. So you hover here, see everything turns blue, selectable. If this is off, we don't have select by face. So this is a handy new thing, new command for us to learn and use on this kind of application. So we're going to start by selecting the roof. To continue on in 325, we're going to go to properties and edit the type of this roof. We'll start with the basic roof, generic 12-inch, and we're going to duplicate it. Let's make this a little smaller. We're going to call it orange and insulated roof. We're going to edit. Okay, the pictures are really helpful on this, big time. So I'm going to change the structure 1 thickness to 4-inch. The picture on 326 is very helpful. Let's start with that. Make sure you do the double parentheses or do 0 space 4, either one. We'll start with that. And structure 1 material. Let's add that. The ... ellipsis button. It's going to be concrete, lightweight. Sometimes it helps to type in the material. There. Selectable. It's in there. Got our thickness. Let's insert a new layer above the core boundary. So to do that, select that. And if you insert, it'll go above it by default. Let's change the function of this new layer to substrate 2. And we're going to find a material for it, which is going to be rigid insulation. Right, we got that. And we're going to change that to 4 inches. So I'll do 0 space 4, a little less typing, but about the same as 0. Just typing in 4 double quotes. We're going to change that to variable. So that means it moves depending on if we slope it to variable thickness, and anything above it, if we put something up here above it, would also be variable on top of it. Below it, it wouldn't be, but above it, things built on top of it obviously would be. So that's something to think about. It makes kind of common sense, but it's not always obvious until you build something out. A lot of times, having the preview open will help with that. So we're going to add one more layer above, and it's going to be a finish layer. I don't know what all the numbering means on every single one of these, but follow with me. I know what the general word means, core layer, air layer, membrane layer, and all that stuff, but the numbering next to it, I'm a little unfamiliar with. We're going to do roofing EPDM membrane. Okay. We're going to do a thickness of half double quotes. And take a look at your preview. Give it a good look. And it's very helpful. So this is our completed roof system we're about to use for our flat roof on the east wing. Let's hit OK again. And we're about to start tapering the flat roof and adding drainage, which is probably the hardest part of this area. There's some more tricky parts to come in this chapter. This is probably the first slight challenge of operations. It's very similar to the floor chapter in that has similar commands to split and add points and add split lines. So we're still in the roof floor plan. We have the roof still selected. If you unselected it, we have to redo that. I just kept it going. And we're going to try the add, and I showed you this function down here, which it's talking about in the book now in 328, but I did it a little ahead of that. We're going to do add split line. So we're going to add our first split line as shown in figure 7.8 on 329. We're going to draw lines. Let's see. I'm going to draw 2 lines. Okay. So let's go to the midpoint here, the midpoint triangle. Snap showing to indicate that it worked. Same here. Hit escape once. Select it again. Basically restarting. Line that up. I should have done this one first. Let's do that. Not a big deal. Escape once. Split line again. Escape once. So we have the roof system split. We're about to start to add points where we want our roof trims to be placed, where the drainage we want to go to into 330. And we'll need some temporary lines basically so we can snap to the midpoint to best do this. This is what they recommend. I'm sure there's more than one way to do this, but this is one way they do it. I'm just going to leave these up and keep this command going. If I remember right, this is the way to go. I'm going to keep going with this, and I'm going to do this detail line button while this is going. So my splits did happen. I just exited out of sketch mode. I'm going to do 4 lines. 1 there. Continue this one, but I did snap it there already. Square endpoint snap. Same with this one. Escape. Got to go back to it. Draw 1 continuous line with 3 points. First, second point. Chain would help if that's on. That could help you, but these are temporary just to place our points, so no worries on that. So I got the temporary lines placed. And I selected my roof. I hit add point. Now I'm using these midpoints, those temporary lines I just made when I was outside of modify roofs. Now I'm back in it. Place one there. I'm gonna use the midpoint snap. That's the whole reason I drafted these temporary lines, to do just this quickly in a diagonal fashion. Okay, we got those picked. And the last one, we're going to pick to the center of this, and it has to show a circle, which there it is, or you can type in SC, which will isolate the circle snap or the center point of arc or circle snap, more accurately said. There we go on our last one. Saying a step on step 7 on figure 11, I don't really understand the implications of it, so I'm going to skip that. Didn't seem to add anything to the benefit of this learning. On page 331, I'm going to exit out of here, hit escape twice. I got my points. So I got my points, so we can see when I hover kind of somewhere on this roof. Now this roof is selectable by clicking at split, areas. I can select it with the face here, or I can select, any one of its little features. This temporary lines, not so much. I want to delete those. That's this next step. They're no longer needed. And that would also select the roof if I select its split line as well as its face at this point. So just know that. Selecting the roof, we're going to go to the modify sub elements. This is a new command for us, and this would have helped us a little bit to know a little bit more on the floor chapter to modify these points particularly. And we're going to add elevation of -3 inches to all of them. So we hit it once, still got our icon of the little cone there, and then we'll type 0 space 3. My mistake, -0 space 3. Want it to be a drainage scenario. So we want this to be our most downhill spot. Everyone gets antsy when you're trying to design drainage in civil engineering. It's obvious things go downhill drain wise, but it's sometimes hard to check make sure you did everything right. Which is putting in negative signs, the right direction. It's easy to fat finger numbers in a model. But in the real world, yeah, we want things to drain downhill to these centers. So that's what we just did. Let's see if we want to do it on the radial point. Yeah. So you click it first and then the blue editable text comes up if I haven't said that already. And our drainage lines our lines are showing up. So this is what our completed roof should look like on 333. It shows you how things are draining to it in the roof drainage. So how's us create a new section. So the section is similar to the figure on page 334. So let's make a section right up here. If we go to view, all our views are section view. Make sure it's a building section, not a wall section. And we'll get close-ish to this midpoint. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll put the head here. Remember, section views are looking the way the arrow's showing. That's the way it starts. And we'll check our grips and distance. That looks pretty good to what we want to see. This is kind of us checking, making a view, and also kind of checking what we did in the vertical, especially. Let's change this view It'll eventually be this size, but let's go back here. It's 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot. So we're going to go into this view. Let's change some things in the view control area. 3/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. Let's make it fine. And let's see how they really want to tighten it up. So in general, they want to tighten this area up a little bit. This area, so it really looks at the roof, right? And that's about it. We're kind of just seeing, the roof slopes to a low point here, our point. It's just a better way to check our work and to look at our variable top 2 layers in play here in the assembly. There's our walls coming up to the bottom of the roof with parapet. So there we go. It wants us to continue on using stuff like that to check things, but on the next exhibit, we'll change that. It looks like we didn't really name that section view anything special. We'll just continue on. We're going to go into the next area on page 335. That's kind of the first part of the chapter. We'll go to the second part. Let's start with going to the 3D view. And you can see our roofs on here. And it's split lines if you hover on it. See what you've done in 3D. So we're going to start with the corridor. We're going to do some pitch roofs in the corridor area now. Let's start by selecting all 6. I'm using Control, left click to hold them, Shift and middle mouse to orbit around if you need to. That's one way I like to do it. There's using this command within the orbit wheel and your view cube as well, of course. Okay. And let's go to the properties edit type of these type of basic walls. We're going to make a similar copy of this, but we're going to remove the parapet from the assembly so we can better build the roof on top of these. That parapet works good for this flat roof. We had like, a little place you can hang out over the edge, sit on your flat roof down below, so things don't run out right off the roof. But in these cases, we're going to make a pitch roof. We're going to get rid of that. So we'll start by using this exterior wall. It's everything we need, but minus one thing. So why not we use this one as our example to build off of. That's kind of the idea of this. We're going to call it the same thing, just no parapet on top. Say okay. And we're going to go similar to what we've done a few times. Start editing it. Actually, let's make sure I have this correct. Section modified type. I know the first time I didn't. So check this, make sure it's on this. Have your preview open. There's 2 different options. Make sure it's on section modified type attributes. And now let's go into edit. Yep, that's a lot of stuff in there. So in the wall that makes up that wall. This gets a little deeper than we're used to. So we're going to go into the sweeps button. And that's just things that sweep around a certain amount, which is this here, this, and also our parapet. So we got our parapet up here. We're just going to simply delete that. And we're going to hit OK. So that's now gone. That's why our preview is helpful. And we're going to continue on to build the corridor roof. I think we got everything we need at the end of page 336. All the good pictures on 337. And on the 338, we're going to start applying our new assembly. Hit OK. Okay. My corridor walls are still selected, which is fine here. But in this case, there's a little work left to be done. If we go to the corridor roof plan, we were just on the roof floor plan, the corridor roof. See the whole picture here. And it's having us change some properties. I'm actually going to change this to fine for now. We're looking for the underlay category. Let's cascade some of these down. And we're going to change, so it's under this underlay category within this entire floor plan. It's just the level 1. And range top level, level 2. Okay, we got that fixed. So the base level has been switched. Apply if it hasn't done so already. One second, I'm just making sure I got that right. Okay. Look down. Yep, that's correct. So let's continue on to step 3. I'm going to start building roof by footprint. This is one of the more difficult first steps of this chapter. This has a lot of steps and there's some ways to fix things. We'll go through that. We got that started. Pick walls will come up. Just check my options. Make sure the defined slope defines a slope up in a direction is on. I'm going to have an overhang and eave this time of 1 foot. And the extended wall core is still off. I'm going to make sure the boundary line's on. Draw panel, and we're going to have the pick lines on as well. And I'm going to pick one at a time. We're going to get the top 3 first. Actually, Control Z there. Didn't get that offset I wanted. There we go. So we got those 3 selected. We're going to select the other side. Now we're going to get the gable ends, this end and this end. So we still got it going. Actually, we could have easily done this. There's a couple steps to this. Let's undo what we did. On your first command, you could easily have the pick walls going too. The gable ends, we're definitely going to use pick lines, but does about the same thing. It's just a little easier to not go to the wrong side. Make sure your overhang is on the outside, right? That's where your roof's going to flow out to. That's what they're recommending for the first step. The second step, they're saying use the pick lines command, and let's check which line they get. This one. It's the entire line of that exterior wall, right? Same with this one. We got some trimming to do. Let's see if there's anything else we needed to add. I don't think so. On those, the offset was 0. These, the offset was 1. The gable ends are offset 0 here and here. Let's trim these back. Pick the 2 things we want. It'll delete the rest. Voila. Do it again. Let's clean this up. Okay. And my Jay-Z song started playing, but we're back. Modify, create roof foot. 1 second. I think we got all the, it's saying basically onto 340, trim all your intersections. I got everything. I think I got a pretty clean close shape. Make sure you do. Zoom back in here. It's on this line on the gable end and this line on the gable end on the exterior wall of the west wing. Hit finish edit mode. And we'll go into 3D view just to take a quick look at the initial roof. This is all pretty good to go if we wanted to leave it that way, but we're going to do some additional edits to make it go across here instead of having this little hip or ridge, I mean. And this ridge is pretty close to what it will be, but we're going to edit this pitched roof a little bit to look slightly different than this. This is the first step. We're going to go to 341 and continue on with that. So let's go back to the corridor roof floor plan. Let's go back to edit footprint of an element, and this element being a roof in sketch mode, back to it. We're going to go to the draw panel and click the line button, and the picture on, well, actually, we're going to delete out some stuff. That's easy to skip that on the end of page 341. So let's use the delete. Let's delete out these. Way up to, they turn blue. Maybe I got to hit control while I do it, so it does multiples. I have to hit enter once. They're deleted. Okay. And I'm going to hit the line command. In this case, this is very important. And these could be edited later, but it's important to do now or later. We're going to try to do it now to make sure the define slope button isn't selected this time. So this is a big critical thing in how the roof transitions from slope, different type, how it slopes basically. And we'll see that in a minute. I got that. We're going to go to step 7 on 343. You know, we could also just take a look at it, see what it looks like now, if you really want. This is what we have right now. We've changed it. We defined this has to have a ridge here before it transitions to the west. Go back to corridor roof, back to edit footprint. So we got one roof. Basically, we're making two. We're going to connect them. So we've done our work here. You can have it selected and create similar, or you can go to architecture tab, roof by footprint. We're essentially making the second part of the roof, and they're going to look combined by the end. We're going to make sure this is turned back on, critical part of this. And we're going to pay close attention to the picture on page 344. We're going to make sure the line matches to the roof on the right. So we're mostly going to use the draw panel and the pick lines command instead of pick walls. Make sure the overhang is 1, as it should be. Like this, this, go. These lines have slope. So I'm about to do the one with no slope in a second. Make sure I trim these back. We could leave them here and see what happens. I'm going to pick lines again. Turn this off. Gotta trim this. Pitch roofs are a little more to them. We don't have a closed shape, obviously, so it shouldn't let us do anything. And we'll use pick line for this one too. This will help finish this off. This is our 6th line. We did the same on this side, this gable end, and then this line. We're going to make sure this is off, no offset, and pick line. Grabs the whole line. Got a little escape. We'll clean up to do, trim to do here. And there we go. Let's see what it looks like. This is everything coming to fruition on one of the more difficult initial steps on this. Finish. I'll save at the same time. There's our second roof. Let's go to 3D mode. Let's see if I did it right. Looks like this could be improved, but everything else looks pretty good. I got this. This had no defined slope. This didn't. These did on the 4 sides. So I can't fully tell if the roof on this should be doing this. I think it should be going straight in the building. We could fix that by editing the footprint, picking this wall, tell it to not define slope. You could also do this in the corridor roof view, and that'll change that. So you can go back and forth on that. Some grips, let's rotate around. Just assume that's what it wanted instead of what I had. They're both equally easy to edit. We can go back here, do the opposite for this one. I'll turn that back on, and it should have a slope here. Okay, I'm going to undo that. Undo one more time. Okay, we're going to continue on to adding type of materials. Let's select both these roofs, and we're going to say wood rafter 8-inch asphalt shingle with insulation. So we added a new rendering type of material. And that'll bring us to our next area, creating a sloping roof. Which before we do that, we're going to create kind of a area, or we're going to expand our corridor roof floor plan, what it sees, what it expands to elevation wise. It's a little confusing, but it'll have its purpose on 344 to 347. So before we do our big slope roof over here, we're kind of expand what can be seen in this view, essentially. I'm going to turn this off. Actually, we wanted it to look down. Yeah, that's what we did earlier. It's saying looking down a level. We're going to do 2 different commands here. We're going to turn crop view on, and we're going to turn show crop region on. We haven't used those yet. So now in this view, just this view, we have the entirety of where it could extend to. So the first thing we're going to do, this is for the corridor in the middle. Let's extend the grips to just that corridor. It's kind of like architect standards to tighten up what you're looking at, a lot of this. Let's get even tighter. And that got our top level view. We're going to dig more into the range it goes into. So we're still going to go into our properties. And in the extents area, we're going to change some things. These 2 are already selected. We're going to go to view range, edit that, And there's a couple things. The top is going to be unlimited, the range it goes to elevation wise. And so this comes in later. It kind of shows what it's talking about here. Explains it with number keys. 5 is your primary range, 1 primary range top. It's explaining what we're changing here a little bit better. On this one, we're going to do associated level corridor roof. That's fine. That all stays, but this is going to go to, the cut plane is going to be 100 feet. Okay. Go back there, just make sure your options have this and this. Okay. And now we're ready to create our slope roof so we can see it fully in our view next. But this was us also checking this area, making a specific view with the right heights for the corridor in the middle. Now let's go back to the 3D view. I'm going to start building the slope roof in this area, the west wing. And it starts by selecting all the exterior walls, the big ones, to the max height. Keep missing that one. Oops. Didn't hit control. Should have 7. Make sure you got them all. Actually, I should have 8. Having trouble getting that one to go. No. Okay, 7. That's why I hover around a lot and just make sure I didn't miss one. We're going to change their type here because we already made it to the no parapet, so it meshes well with the top, because this isn't going to be a flat roof top. So we're going to have better roof meshing if that parapet's not on. I just changed them. You can see it's off now, right? It's still on here, this little short area. It's coming in handy to have the right types ready to go. Let's continue to building the slope roof. And let's start with going to the west roof floor plan that we made a while ago. It should be blank like this, but we're going to change that. We're going to set the base level, range base level to 3. Just checking that. Make sure I'm in the right area. Floor plans, west roof, yeah. Hold on. Okay. Why I'm having trouble finding this. Oh, there it is. My Lord. It's underlay base level. level 3. Sometimes it doesn't pay to have all these cascaded. I think I skipped it a couple times. I was just trying to get it to show where I needed to. Let's continue on. Architecture tab by footprint again. Let's change it to the steel truss insulation on metal deck roof. EPDM. Draw pick walls is done by default. We'll hover on one, hit the tab key again, which is great. Our overhang is set to 1, and our deselect, our defined slope is deselected. Here and here, looks good. And no selection on extended core wall again. Hover on that, hit tab, pick. Our magenta line should look like this. Time to set slope now. That all looks good. So on the draw panel, this is a new command. We're gonna pick the slope arrow button, which if you look here, that's where it's at. So we're specifying our direction. We want things to slope uniformly. And it's very critical to pick the direction. So on the picture on 350, we go 1, 2 with endpoint picks. I'll just do that one more time, just to make sure we have everything selected here. Nothing off on the offset, just making sure we all clarified on that. Okay. And let's change a couple things in the properties in 351. Specify what it is, not exact height, but a slope. And we're going to change the slope pitch to, looks like 3/12, 312 pitch roof. Okay. And that's good for now. Hit finish edit mode. We'll have a range issue again, so it's going to cut off. We need to go higher to see everything. That's a little bit of something you can maybe set when range is big at the beginning of a project or not. But so let's hit escape once. Takes us back to our floor plan, which we're on, of the west roof. And we're going to go to the view range row. There's quite a few options in here. That's probably why I got lost last time. And we're going to change. This is what I was about to do earlier. I should have just left that to unlimited on the top view. So we can go as high as we want to be seen. This one we're going to change to 40 feet on the cut plane, which is what 2 is. And that'll do it. Okay, that shows it all. If we go to the 3D view, we'll take a look at that roof. It's out there in space. We defined our slope upwards from here to here. We do the opposite, obviously. We went from northwest to south, northeast to southwest. And we're going to do a quick command here to attach the walls. Grab all the walls, same ones we started with. Holding Control, got 7 selected. And on this new command, we're going to attach them to the top of the base. You can also detach them if you don't like what you've done. And saying what it wants to go to. So I always, take a look at the status bar if you're really confused, working on the fly without a book. So select the roofs, floors, ceilings, or parallel walls to go to. In this case, it's a roof. Fills it in. There we have our sloped roof in the west wing. We're going to create some roofs by extrusion, starting on page 354. This has its complex areas. Once we get this page 356 to 360, there's quite a few steps. So we'll try to go with them. And at the very end of the chapter, when we create a roof dormer, that also has a little bit to it. We're going to create it over here. But first, we're going to create an extruded roof for this little area here. So let's start by doing similar to what we just did, changing the materials to take the parapet off of these walls. The same type, but just no parapet. And we're going to go to level 1 in this case. Let's maybe close a few of these, but I'll keep my level 1 floor plan open. And this one's going to involve a lot of making reference planes and moving them around to draft off of, because we got to do most of our drafting in an elevation view. So we're going to make an elevation view exclusively for this. It's elevation view, regular here. It could be either one, but it says do building elevations, so let's do that. I believe it might even have to be if it's on the outside. We'll put it right about here. And we'll hit escape, pick the view by the arrow. That's also where you double click it to look at the view. And let's match it to approximately what the picture shows on 355 for the depth and width. Let's escape, pick it. We have our view here. We can name it here, which sometimes I find quicker than trying to find it in the project browser. You can do either. And we're going to name it South Entry South Elevation Entry. Okay. Let's go inside the view by double clicking it here or the arrow there. Let's change view control to fine and the scale to 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Tighten it up a little. Let's go back to level 1. These we'll be bouncing back between these two. And we got a reference plane here that still remains, which is good. Let's click it, get our dimensions, go way in here. Let's make sure it goes to 1 foot 6 inches, 1 space 6. Looks good. Check it again. It's all good. There's a new thing we're going to do here. It says click to name. So you can name it here as well. Also name it in the blue. We're going to name it so we can find it and use it later. This will make more sense later why we're naming it. It's in both spots. Also, you can do it in the properties. We're going to go back to the south elevation view. Now we got that done. You have to click on it to see those names. So if it's not clicked, you won't see them. Back to the south elevation entry. And the importance of the reference plane we just adjusted. It's going to be one of our main bases that we build off of when we draft to make this extrusion shape. So we'll start by staying in the elevation view, architecture tab, roof by extrusion. It's a new one for us. And there's some current work plans. It really wants to use one, so that's why we went for it here and named one so we could find it. What we just named. If we hadn't named it, we wouldn't have found it there. You could also go pick it somewhere, but since we named it, it's easy to find there. Okay. And in this next dialog box, change the level to setting level 3. Okay. No offset, not that I'm seeing. And we got our create extrusion roof profile modify going on in the ribbon. So at this point, we're going to start making reference planes. So we're going to make one very good on the picture on 358. I'm going to pick line, and I want to make the offset 3 for the left and the right. Hover, see which side you want the reference plane to go to. These are drafting keys, so these are important that we get them the right side. And then the last one on the top, we're going to go with 4. And that one looks like it wants us to hover right onto the top of that wall of that little, of our little outshoot of that building area. Let's hit escape twice, look at our properties box, and we're going to hit edit type. It doesn't really say which type to edit from, but in the full words of the book, but I know after trying this a couple times, let's start with this roof type. And we're going to say duplicate. We're going to call this a canopy roof. Hit OK. And we're going to hit edit. And take a look at the picture on 359. We're going to delete one of the structures. Let me take a look. Finish. There's a few things to delete. This isn't exactly so this will do. Doesn't have this fully spread out to see what you need, but this will be good enough for instruction purposes. It has this cascaded to about here. So it's hard to tell. I'm going to change this to 4 inches. Really, it should say this. So we deleted 2 layers basically and changed the thickness. This is the full material name that the book doesn't quite show. It's a little bit chopped. So that's helpful to see that. A little confusing part of the book. Okay, we have what we need. Double check everything. Yep. Okay. And okay again. And now we're going to start to draw extrusion. We're going to use a start and radius arc, which our drafting lines are now going to come in huge start end, and the radius will simply use the midpoint. This reference plane we just created from the top of the wall. Escape once. And here we got our extrusion start, say -2. We're just defining the thickness. We want it to go down. We defined its main line, and this is just getting its thickness. So there we go. That's where the -2 comes in, or actually it goes in the other direction. We'll see in a minute what that means. 3D view. Oh, interesting. Oh, I did the wrong one. Extrusion start should be 0, which it was. Extrusion end should be -2. This is all stuff you can edit later too, but I was looking at 3D. It should look more like this little sliver. We're going to wrap this area of the book up here. let's stay in 3D mode just so we can see everything. And let's go to the Modify tab. And the unjoin roof, which is a new command for us, adds in things, connects things smartly. Let's pick it. Here's the hard part. Just make sure you grab the top back. So it's saying select an edge of the roof that you wish to join or unjoin. We want this top back arc. Second part, select a face on another roof or wall where you want the first pick to be joined. I want this face. It's my second pick. And we're all done. With that, last step is what we just did on our last job, is to extend our flat walls smartly up to our new roof. Let's zoom in here a little. All three are picked. And zoom under so I can have something to pick to, attach top base, base of the roof. There they go. There we are. So we have the extrusion roof built, arc shape. How practical that gets built in the world, that's more of a architect's discretion, but it shows you can do complex geometries of various shapes as your needs arise. The last step, we're going to add a roof dormer to the pitch roof in the corridor in the middle. So let's end this chapter with that. And I'll go to the floor plan for the corridor roof. Let's pick this roof. Remember, it's two parts because we had to do it to get it to join this way right here. Is also just helping us to show that that can be done. And we'll edit the footprint. We use the split element command. We'll make sure this is on. There's a few steps to this, so bear with. I'll try to go slow enough. Going into page 365 towards the end of the chapter, I'm going to say, where do I want my first point? So it's going to cut out the middle, or not deselect, my bad. We want to leave it. So what I did on here that seemed to work for me, I just hovered to an even integer 4. Hovered there, it looked good. I selected. Did the same on this side. Just use the power of Revit to go to even integers, inches here. And it escaped twice. Select the middle line. We have our options bar similar to what we were messing with before when we were changing how the roof went. I'm going to deselect this now. That's the big step there. Now we have the length of the dormer established. We're going to indicate to Revit that we want it to be a gable end dormer. So we're going to have to do that by adding slope arrows into the roof. So let's start by slope arrow. And take a look on the picture on 366 on the pick areas. But also, we'll just watch me here. The first arrow, let's go from here to here. Second one, do it again from the endpoint where that 4 foot we did to the midpoint of the middle line. We should have a little cross in the middle here by the end, a little plus sign. And the pick order is important. Go in the right direction here, here, and then the second is do this again, here to here. So pick both the slope arrows, and they're little arrows. So you see how they're an arrow one at a time. They look like a cross in the middle. select both. I'll have to hold down Control for that. I got both selected. You should see 2 here, 2 here. And the properties and constraints, change them to slope. That should be it. And see our dormer on the top view. Select somewhere off into space in the view. Let's go to 3D. One more thing to do. We made the top dormer work. Somehow I added some wonkiness in over here. I'll have to fix that later. But for now, I got my dormer here to end the chapter. In this case, let's attach this up to the top of the roof. The same command done before. Second pick being the roof. Where it fills in. There we go. That's the end of chapter 6 or 7, excuse me. We can place all the different types of roofs, flat roofs, pitch roofs, or hip roofs, unconventional slope roofs, like extruded roofs with dormers. We can analyze tricky areas. We can edit wall joins and attach roofs quickly with walls, make different tapers and drain areas. And we wrapped up. Will leave us into the Unit 2 quiz and lab, and structural items next. All right.